The time has come for my people to go.
I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's what the people demand, we gonna keep fighting till we get that land. I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's time to rise, to get what we want, we got to organize.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pantsula Podcast, brought to you by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. For those of you who are not familiar with the A-APRP, our objective is Pan-Africanism, and we define that as a totally liberated and the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. Today I have my comrade with me, Evan. My name is Jeffrey. And before each episode, we like to dedicate to our ancestors. So I'll go ahead and let Evan go ahead and dedicate the episode to our two ancestors.
Access to Zumbi dos Palmares and Lorraine Hansberry. Zumbi dos Palmares, he was the last king of the Palmares Quilombo and was now known as Brazil. And one of the things is that he fought against the Portuguese colonizers to protect the Quilombo. Unfortunately, the Portuguese were able to assassinate him in 1695, and to the point where they shot him and hung his head as how dare you fight against us, just show off. And his death date is now known as the day of Afro-Brazilian consciousness, which is showing pride for the Africanness of Brazil. As some of you might know, or if you don't know, Brazil has the largest population of Africans outside of the continent of Africa, which is so understanding of the role of Africans in Brazil is quite critical. And our second ancestor that we're going to honor is Lorraine Hansberry. You might most know her for her play Raising the Sun. Might not know as much about the fact that she wrote for called the Freedom newspaper, Freedom, which is a Pan-Africanist New African newspaper during the early part of the 1950s. She was also associate editor for it, and there were writings from not only her, but also W. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, and other people who were involved in African international and Pan-Africanism at the time. She also, even though she didn't do about this as much, she also wrote about the fact that she was a lesbian. And also, while she might not have done as much work as far as rights for people in the LGBTQ community, she also was part of that as well. And she is also a socialist as well. So one thing is that, and like Zumbi, she transitioned to the ancestors at a very young age due to pancreatic cancer. And just something from James Baldwin saying that the stress from trying to fight against all these different oppressions was part of the reason why it took a toll. And I think that's the particular importance of is the fact that she was a African woman, is that she was the doubly oppressed, but it means they're also doubly militant. It's something we should also remember. So, those were the two ancestors that are going to honor for this episode.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Appreciate that. This episode, we're actually going to dive in again. I know if you guys seen one of our previous episodes, we kind of did something similar where we dissected one of Kwame Ture's videos. And this one in particular, we're going to dive into where he's talking about socialism. So let me go ahead and play this for you guys.
Socialism hasn't gone anywhere. It has been betrayed, yes. But betrayal doesn't mean collapse. Perhaps they get confused because at least Judas had the dignity after betraying Christianity to hang himself. Gorbachev is still running around the world picking up pieces of silver. Must be clear here and not confused. I'm a socialist. One other thing I must tell you now. They confuse people about socialism. Brother the other day said, I ain't no socialist. I said, why not, brother? He said, because it's a white thing. I said, oh, really? You see, Europe tries to make believe that everything that comes out of the world comes out of Europe. I told the man, I said, socialism ain't no white thing. He said, yes, it is. He said, Karl Marx discovered it. I told him, Karl Marx never discovered socialism. He cannot. You call the laws of gravity Newton's laws. I'm sure there's a mnemonic device to help you on your quizzes. But you certainly cannot believe that Isaac Newton can found that a body falls at the rate of 32 feet per second squared per second squared. He can't find this. He can't discover it. He cannot invent this. He can only observe it and record it, discover the law. If I'm sitting in Timbuktu in Africa and I've never heard of Sir Isaac Newton and I'm conducting any experiments with gravity, I will come to the same conclusion that he does. A body in motion tends to stay in motion unless stopped by an outside force. He cannot invent this. He can only observe it and record it.
Yeah, I guess I just want to stop it there to kind of just, unpack some of the things he said there and how it's relevant to today, because I think even in today's society, we still see that happen especially amongst Africans. I'm pretty sure across, the global South and even, inside the imperial core, we just see like, oh yeah, it's funny because Abdul Rahman Babu, he accounts for Abdul Rahman Muhammad Babu accounts for this as well in his book in African Socialism or Socialist Africa, where he talks about out in Russia, it was actually even, the Soviet Union when, during Lenin's time and everything like that, and socialism was being introduced. Essentially, you had people who say, oh, yeah, socialism is a foreign idea or communism is a foreign idea. We have to just stick to our, traditional roots, right? Or like traditional systems. And, that's a foreign Western European thing. We're over here and we don't believe in that, whatever. Essentially, he talks about that, breaks it down. But, I think Kwame Ture does a very good, breakdown and analysis of how socialism is a universal truth. Like no matter what society, you're either going to have a system where some people own or a system where, the people or the majority of people own the means of production. So yeah, I guess just wanted to see if we can kind of unpack that essentially how anti-socialist rhetoric is propagated in society today. And then also, how we combat that and, and disseminate the information.
Well, one thing is to further your point is how often socialism or communism gets. You might hear this. Obviously, you might hear so in circle in a bubbles. They say that if someone still talk about socialism, talk about communism, they talk about it's just some way. They didn't know they talk about they don't know what as they mentioned not only like you say within the Soviet Union there was the idea that it was a foreign idea, but when the Soviet Union was coming about, they allowed the West global Western imperialist nations thought that this is like if you read some of the discussion about the Soviet Union, there's the discussion of it being sort of Asiatic, it was Asiatic, which is it's kind of funny. It's within the parts of the Soviet Union, we can't take it. It's from Europe, and then see it from enemies of it in Europe. It's an Asian thing. It's sort of really do you want to claim it or not? But again, it just shows that it's a universal part of it that whenever there is a class, whenever there is a class-based society, and again, one of the things we talk about in the A-APRP is the nation or land class gender struggle, is that when we have land, we have resources, we have ideas or production of some sort, or relations with each other. And if you have it where a few, like you said, a few people have the greatest control over it, then and the rest of it are working for whether it's to please the Lord or to make it so that the master doesn't whip them or they punish them in any way, or for the boss that they doesn't like cut their wage, whatever. Like when you have that sort of relation to each other, then of course, like the vast majority of people who are in that situation are gonna say, you know what, we don't care for this. So, and even if it looks, like, as we say, even if it looks different, whether you're in Russia, whether you're in France, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in Mozambique, like while it'll look different, because obviously the conditions are going to be different, you're still going to say, hey, we don't like the fact that you're exploiting us. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't have the Communist Manifesto with you. Maybe you don't have contradiction with you. You know, imperialism has the highest stage of capitalism on you. You like, people are going to know. It's like, hey, I don't like this. So, yeah. and as Kwame Ture pointed out, that it's something that people will find out. And just because Karl Marx and Frederick Engels is like, what you know, says like people talk about Karl Marx, but then Frederick Engels is like, hey, I help too. But yeah, like just because they write about it, and of course, like they were part of organizations to try to they're part of organizations to resolve the contradiction between Hyper. That just because they're the ones who get the so-called credit for it doesn't mean that it's somehow like it's going. It doesn't mean that it originated there. You know, if you read some of the works of Ibn Khaldun from centuries ago, even though it's not the exact same conclusions, it is like Marx, Engels. It is like a sociological discussion of how societies work and how and yeah. So you just have to say that it's been talked about. Maybe it's not talked about the same way, but again, and to relate to the point of scientific laws, like we have these different laws from science, and if you want to again with Herkel, I want to say I don't believe in sort of the quote unquote Newtonian physics, or even quantum physics or quantum mechanics. Even if you take about science in more of a spiritual manner, you're still going to have different people who take what's coming towards them and say, "Oh, when I did this, it reacted this way, but if I do this, it reacts in different ways." And then they take those observations and apply it again and again. So, and sometimes a name is attached to it. Sometimes there's no name. But regardless of the nomenclature, you're still having that sort of struggle, unity, so forth. I think that's the point that Kwame Ture is trying to point out, that just because a certain name is attached to it doesn't mean that there's like no origin, that the origin is only attached. And I think there's some people that might disagree, to think, oh, we have to focus on something African. We can't rely on Marx, but again, because Marx was wrong on this, or Engels was wrong on this, Lenin was wrong. Again, like in any sort of science or any sort of understanding of the world in some material manner, you'll think, well, some of it is correct, so we'll keep that, and the parts that are wrong, okay, we'll show how it's wrong and find something better. And that's, I think, when you talk with the people who are involved with like the stuff they were dealing with, whether you talk about people dealing with homelessness, dealing with health issues, whether it's related to COVID or some of the ruling class ideas around it, or you talk about like people who are exploited in the mines or in by the landlords and so forth. Like you're gonna, it's all like understanding where they're coming from, dealing with it, and then working on some. So, and I think you sort of understand. And I think it's something that we've talked about in different episodes, that it's all about being humble and understanding what they're going through. And they say, "Oh, I know. There's something that I read about people who were dealing with something similar, and you apply on that. We see how it works, and then we come back, say, okay, maybe we can adjust it." And I think that's the point.
Exactly. Yeah. No, those are great points. And I think even to your point in associating a name with the universal truth doesn't mean it stems from that person who gave it the name, or where the name, got conjured up from. Like it makes me think of the Pythagorean theorem, right? When we think of mathematics, a lot of people may attribute Pythagoras to starting that theory, whatever, or that that form of mathematics. Or what is it? I'm not a mathematician, as you can tell. I guess it's a calculus or whatever, algebra. I think it's algebra.
I think it's like analytical geometry, I think.
Oh, geometry. Okay. So
mathematicians want to correct us, just do so.
Yeah, just put it in the comments. Yeah, but yeah, essentially like that, it just stemmed from Greece. Like it has roots in Africa before, like thousands of years, hundreds of years before Pythagoras even tried to claim fame to it, whatever the case is, or people tried to attach him to that. And the same thing goes for socialism, essentially. Like, it has roots, communalism has roots in Africa, and the tenets of socialism, pretty much like the principles of it, is pretty much similar. Now, one thing we do have to account for is that, because, I think some people say, well, why don't we just go to, old traditional communalism? And it's like, it's not applicable to today's society. That's, especially more so in Africa too, or any society really that's advanced, that's gone from communalism to feudalism to capitalism. And we're in, the highest stage of capitalism now. And to say that none of those things had an impact in our society and the way we move and our mode of productions and things of that nature is a fallacy, right? That would be idealistic to say so. So socialism accounts for more so the what's what I'm looking for, the industrialization period that took place, right? Even the fact that we've we're so advanced in technology since then, right? And that's a society and the way we produce things and the way things are produced. So socialism does account for that as well, like various industries and things of that nature and the modes of production. So, and the means of production, I should say. So I think that also has to be taken into account of when we talk about these things. And then when it's us being this Nkrumahs, like Kwame Nkrumah, Nkrumah's Therese understood that there's no such thing as, and other, revolutionaries also accounted for this as well. Just like Babu, who I named earlier, who accounts for there's no such thing as African socialism or Chinese socialism. This is one scientific socialism. Now the realities and how it's like realized in various societies, like you were saying, Evan, maybe like a little different, but once again, the principles don't change itself. The people still own the means of production at the end of the day. It's not going to be there's no third way to really do it. It's either you're going to adopt the capitalist or socialist society, and then hopefully socialist on the way to communist society. So yeah. All right. So let's probably watch a little bit more of this.
In the deserts, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slave of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one. Not to declare that Karl Marx didn't invent socialism. It's there for all to see. Karl Marx's great contribution to the world was in the area of historical materialism and dialectical materialism, something you need to know if you know about socialism. But since you don't know about socialism, you don't even know the words.
Just a quick plug-in. Watch our episode on, I think we did one on dialectical materialism. Have we done on? We probably talked about historical materialism too. But yeah, I think that's good to note that his area of contribution was that and not socialism itself. You know, even though the term is coined socialism. I don't know if he even put a name onto it. I don't think that didn't come until after Marx. Someone else could correct me. I don't know about if I'm wrong about that, but to my understanding, he didn't even call it socialism. He actually Marx even was the one to say like apparently like don't make an ideology based off me, like don't like don't call it Marxism or something like that. So it's kind of funny how that even came about.
Yeah, and another point is that like some of the ideas of like dialectical materialism that the other cultures have had ideas about like the unity of opposites for like long before Marx and Engels were even born, and not to mention that socialism, one of the things about like the sort of like basic orthodox Marxist idea of socialism came about from other people who were socialists, the utopian socialists who were primarily French, English, so forth. So again, like and again, like socialist, like other socialist ideas or socialistic ideas that were around before. Like, it's not Marx like, hey, I found socialism, then now follow it. But like again, he just put like he just have to be the one to put it on paper and make the analysis, and you went from there. Like other people have done socialism, other people have other cultures and such have talked about unity of opposites, even though like it's based on Hegel's sort of dialectics. Like dialectics is something that's thousands of years old. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
it's just like yeah, and not to mention the economics, like the English like economic, political economy, and again like economics has been talked about for a while, even though like modern economics is relatively new. Again, like the thing is that they were able to combine it into this analysis that worked very well. Obviously, like any human or any theory that they'll have faults, but again, you look for the faults and you try to correct them, or you find some other way that like does a better job of talking about the material world.
Exactly. Yeah. And like we were saying, like dialectics existed that's another thing. Dialectics existed like way before Marx. I'm reading Al-Jahiz, who's a Islamic scholar from like the 9th century, and he was a dialectician. He believed in dialectics, so it's been an ancient old belief or understanding of the world essentially. Whatever. So what Marx did was essentially combine dialectics and materialism to make dialectical materialism as a way to form an analysis. Want to learn more? Watch our video. Yeah. So yeah, let's. I guess we could just finish this video out then. Just want to stop and see that.
And not only does the enemy keep you ignorant, you stay ignorant. You won't ever go read a book about socialism. Why read a book about socialism? They already told me in my class it ain't no good. You will not even read a book about socialism. Why you don't even read a book about your history? We come to inspire you to learn. We come to tell you that when you come to serve a people, you must know as much as you can. The more you know, the better able you are to serve the people.
Man, facts, bars, fire emoji. Yeah. That's so true. Like in societies, people will be anti-socialist, anti-communist, and can't tell you what it is. They just hate it because that's what the state propagates. That's what these institutions propagate. Schools we go to, media, whatever, right? Is that like capitalism is the best? It's the only thing we can have. It's the best thing, so let's just be okay with it, essentially, which is false, really, at the end of the day. So I think it's upon us to join work study processes, revolutionary spaces, organizations, really, to do our own homework and research, to form our own analysis instead of letting the enemy dictate what we think is good or bad at the end of the day.
Right.
I think that was
as the recent episode Jamil and I did on primary sources, like again, like you actually read like what Marx and Engels said, you read what Lenin and Stalin said, you read what Mao and Ho Chi Minh, and you read what Nkrumah and Ture and Cabral and all these other people. You read the works of the Palestinian struggle, the Irish struggle, the New African struggle, the West Papua struggle. You read what they're saying. And also you read about like what the enemies are saying, because you want to make sure you have like that knowledge of, okay, what are they actually believing and what are they saying? So
exactly, dialectics. You gotta read both sides, man. It's like Kwame Ture says in other speeches where like he was caught on a plane reading Hitler's work, and so, oh my God, you reading Hitler? It's like, if I don't read Hitler, how do I know what he's saying, or what he's saying is true? Am I just gonna rely on some random person telling me Hitler's bad, even though we know he's bad, but like inherently? But it's like, all right, let's investigate that, because they also say Nkrumah and Mao and Ho Chi Minh and all these people are bad and despotic, and we all, a lot of us just soak it. Oh, okay, because someone else told me that. Western media told me, so it has to be true. They can't lie, but we know they tell lies all the time. Like the CIA lies all the time, and a lot of these outlets that you're listening to are funded by them, whatever the case is, or have inner workings with them. So it's upon us, and as people who are looking to find that are fighting for justice and looking for truth, the real truth, to do the research ourselves and read from the main sources, like primary sources. So definitely watch that episode too. So yeah. Is there anything else you wanna add, or?
I think another point that really struck me with the video is a discussion of and not only like how much we've done like a few episodes like just talking about like how vast the ideology is of like the capitalist system. It's vast. Like even among people who are like revolutionists, like we still keep like some of the aspects of the capitalist ideology in different ways, and I think that's something that people have to keep in mind, and I think so. It also goes back to some of the idealism in certain movements of saying like we were talking about earlier, like just return to back when. Let's just turn back to when we had the Songhai Empire or the Mali Empire, the Ghana or Congo. Like again, they even if you somehow succeed in that, it's gonna look different than it does when it was in like the 10th, 12th century. They didn't have iPhones then. Yeah. They didn't have Alexa. They didn't have high-speed rail. Like it's gonna look different.
Yeah, and it's just like their relations with other nations too is different. How trade and commerce is done, so forth and so on. So we have to have a materialist understanding on our society today and how it's working and things of that nature. Obviously, we could use historical materialism and build off that history and learn what happened back then and how we could build off of it, but not just solely like, oh, let's just go back and and who knows, like in various parts of our history wasn't like perfect, right? Like there may have been some societies where they've had like something oppressive to a segment of society, whether it's women or whatever, right? We don't want to reproduce that into today, so we have to account for that too as well. Not just, I think Mao has a quote where it's like, you don't want to just go back. Essentially, I'm summing it up. You don't want to go back to some like old idealist way of living and just inheriting every drop of like feudalism or, oppression that comes with it too as well. So yeah, we have to, deal with these things in a material sense and ensure the safety and the well-being of everyone within our society, essentially. Right. I think.
It's okay to have you might have some of the principles, like for example, if someone they speak about Ma'at, or they speak about Sankofa, there are principles that can be applied right now. It's just that it's not going to look like it's not going to look like how it did then. You still have, or as we talk about historical nihilist materialism, it's not like it's gonna the way it looks, way like a unified socialist Africa would look in however many years, decades. It's going to look different than China during the early part of during the Cultural Revolution. It's going to look different than how the Soviet Union looked in the 20s and 30s. It's going to look different from any sort of communal Africa that might be there now. So you can't just, I know this is like a little bit more of an ideology of copy and paste, and you can't copy and paste historical times on one another. That's not going to work.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't. It's not going to work at all. And I also like to. I know we talked about or alluded to it in various episodes, like to distinguish, to be able to distinguish and delineate between ideology and objectives. Now, obviously, I think one thing that Kwame Ture always talks about is like Marxism being used, a lot of the times by Europeans to achieve socialism. And, within our party, we understand that, ideology stems from your society, right? So like us as Africans, we have to use, an African analysis, an African world perspective, African ideology, essentially, which for us would be Nkrumah and Tourism, to achieve a socialist society. So I think it's important because I think a lot of times people just like lump it all in, like ideology and objective is like just all. I mean, it does. It's interrelated in a way. You're looking at it dialectically, but I think you have to distinguish that, like, we've seen ideology, like what the worldview is, and like the thoughts and ideas that guides that action, which is the ideology to that objective. Now you have varying degrees of ideology. You have Maoism, you have Marxism, you have Nkrumah. Some people can even say, Cabralism, so forth and so on. There's so many different ones. So I think it's important to always note that out. That there's
left communist, you got libertarian communist, you got like Marxist Leninist, you got there's like lots out there. So Trotsky, you got all sorts of things. And even within different ideologies, it's going to look it's going to look different. Like depending on when you do it, like you could work, like you have something happen now, and if you have the same people like 2 years from now, it's going to look different because there's another imperialist power that's coming to power, or this is some new technology that intensified class struggle. There's a greater understanding of the role of women and people, marginalized genders, who the role of production and exchange. So you just gotta keep on going.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's man. Kwame Ture is one of the reasons I'm in the party, man. His analysis is on point a lot of the times. I'll be like, yeah, but yeah, this one is right on key, man. And I think it still rings true to today. We see it every day on social media, especially me. I see it all the time. People just spew out a lot of, he's this white man stuff, but he does a great job of breaking it down. Just even in 2 minutes, right? I pray I have like the same type of like talking methods and like whatever as Kwame Ture, because he did a good job of just doing that really quick. Is there any last words or anything else you want to add for?
And yeah, you should also check out the whole lecture of where this has come from. And I think another point is that like in the best, I think this is something that any sort of revolutionary should remember, is that even at the best, like that, even when we do appreciate the battles and struggles and the words and works of our ancestors and our elders, that you have that understanding that yes, they did some great things. Yes, they did. They advanced the struggles, but also like they're still human. Like that, there is room. As we say, there's room to constructively criticize some of the things they did or didn't do. There's room to understand where organizations did well and fell short. but again, you have to do it in a constructive manner. You can't say, oh, so they dated white women, so if I won't listen to them, or she was hanging out with so and so, or she said this one time when like with the Kwame Ture with the whole thing that something he said during the SNCC. I think we mentioned this for like the episode we talked about. We watched that lecture about we said about the best position for women is being prone, and like how that's like sort of like, oh, see black man, like a black revolutionary man can't say his thing. So like again, like it's okay, like it's okay to have verses of where they might fall short on the drive towards socialism, or where they fall short of applying it and of tactics and so forth. But again, this one thing to do that in like a principled manner is nothing to just like talk about and gossip and say, because like again, like one of the big things for that like we discussed it for like counterintelligence agencies and counterinsurgencies is that rumor mongering and creating rumors, that like a lot of that has done a lot of damage, and either creating rumors to cause splits or using already like issues within organizations and like exacerbating. So again, that's something to remember. So and on the flip side, you also want to make sure that that you don't fall into what you call a cult personality, where like on the one hand you don't want to just like take small things and fault them and say, it's no good, and then but at the same time you don't want to do the other thing and be like, Nkrumah, you're so great, but like again, like they have faults, and like we're talking about materials, like by creating sort of these this like saintly figures, or saintly like even like the best people, like who are curious, they are humble, they able to create, understand where they went wrong. Like you still want to understand they are still people, and by creating a certain ideal figure is again idealism, and if you create that idealism, then people are like, well, maybe I should create that figure, and when that happens, it can get ugly.
Yeah. Our favorite revolutionary, these people are not prophets. They're not like, messiahs, nothing like that. They're regular human beings like you and I. I think that's usually what's, looked at it as like, oh, this idealistic figure, and, let's try to attain, but like, they're just human. They make mistakes, they've made mistakes, whatever the case is, just like me and you. And I'm pretty sure if a lot of us like who try to uphold them to some crazy standards that they themselves don't hold up to, I'm pretty sure you put up some people's past, or even mistakes up to the light, is going to look crazy too, like anyone else. Like, I'm sure some things I said, like, the 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago sounds crazy, or maybe some mistakes I've even made in my journey of learning and understanding and political education. I've made mistakes too, and I'm pretty sure that's just for everyone, even the ones who we now esteem as like high scholars or revolutionaries, whatever. So don't look at these figures as like some type of like great, they were greats. I don't want to say like they weren't greats, but like there's some like, perfect idealist like person you should just like try to be some prophet or something like that. It's like, no, that's not the case. So yeah.
And also goes with about the harmony between revolution is that if you don't have that harmony, then if like some things that some revolutionaries say about the mistakes of like socialist countries is that while they understand the role between the ruling class and like religious authority, that they often were one of the same, that sort of like going the other way and just saying like, oh, don't practice, that might have been a fault. So, and the flip side, like sometimes we have focus on religion, then you get issues of like, oh, were you practicing correctly, or you get some like the fundamentalists who you see like fundamental like has like you see a lot of issues with that with it's Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, like fundamentalism, and like they did like ultranationalism and so forth, that they have like understanding that you can't discount someone because they have a certain religion, but again, like understanding how they work dialectically, they understand how the ruling classes has so long used religion as a figure to keep down like the masses. Also understand that it can work as a revolutionary tool, but again, like it depends on how you do it. So
yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It could be used by the oppressed or the oppressor. Usually when it's used by the oppressors, there's a lot of distortment and how it's used, or they try to use ways like, look at the transatlantic slave trade and stuff like that, right? Like the Ma'afa, like the African Holocaust, whatever you want to call it, right? Essentially you had people weaponizing Christianity in a way to enslave Africans. It's mutual justification, like, oh, obey your master. Like that's literally, they'll take excerpts and stuff like that. They created their own version of a Bible, the slave Bible and stuff like that, to justify these things. And you can't say that the way they used it versus the way, someone like Garvey used it, Denmark Vesey and so forth and so on have used Christianity as a way to fight against Nat Turner, to fight against slavery and injustice. It's the same thing. So it just shows like, these things can be weaponized for revolutionary or oppressive means. Same thing with like Malcolm X versus like, some, Muslims you see like in the Saudi or wherever, right? Like abetting U.S. imperialism and stuff like that. Some of those Gulf states and stuff like that. So they also got to get accounted for as well.
And also, and again, and while we do like point out the use of those religions for the man of the oppressed, it's all like, speaking about Africans specifically, it's also okay to like understand like that we have a long history of like African religion, spirituality to go upon as well. That it's okay to look upon that, and like as I said, like whether you talk about the monotheistic religions or the African traditional religions, have you, is always incumbent to look upon where where can you use it for a revolutionary purpose, and which things are anti-people. And again, you have to look at that and analyze carefully. I don't know if I myself before I finished.
Yeah, I think we kind of got the end of that one. Yeah. But yeah, man. We appreciate you joining in again for another episode of the Pantsula Podcast. Before we head on out, we'd like to implore you guys to view our other podcasts that we have within the A-APRP. So we have the Forward Ever podcast, which is on Spotify. We also have our New Mexico chapter as well, who they do their own streaming and podcasts as well. All the links I'm talking about will be below in the description. Our ancestor voices, and then also revolutionary African women as well. So yeah, we appreciate you guys for joining. Stay tuned for another episode next Monday and Forward Ever.
And yeah, also check out like other comrades like Black Power Media, Colonialism. Check those out. Check out, like as we say, check out the media. Yeah, of course, like obviously, like understand what the capitalist media is talking about and look through it in a careful eye, but also look at media that is talking from the perspective of the masses, of the exploited. Whether you talk about African-based media, you talk about communist-based media of the poor, of the indigenous folks, of those financial liberations. Like, keep looking.
Yeah.
And if you need help with that, we're here to help you.
Yeah, and then also I forgot this. I actually need to start putting this in the description. Cop some A-APRP gear as well from the Forward Ever shop. I need to actually get me some too as well. But yeah, get some of that merch. So definitely support revolutionary work, and we appreciate you guys again, and catch you next week or whatever.
Or